Bob, are you okay? Can you help get Bob up?
That's not my job, and I wasn't trained to help sick people. Sorry.
It's been a busy week. I went on a little bit of short travel. Spent some great time with medical professionals and renewed my American Heart instructor certification. And it brought to mind a lot of things during this little evolution. Most recently, a few years back, uh, I installed a first aid training program, American Heart first aid training program, into a jail, into a detention center. And what I found was the process was very difficult on both sides, both on the American Heart side, because there's a lot of bureaucracy and there's a lot of levels you got to go through, which some of them are safe, like safeties that must be in place in order to maintain the integrity of the organization. And the other part was getting people involved in the implementation of a first aid program for the organization. For some reason, when you're dealing with employees, whenever you get them involved in doing something positive for the workforce, they want an incentive. They want more money. They want more things. And for the most part, you're pretty much on your own. You, as the person that's trying to implement this program, you have to bargain with them and figure out, use project management strategies in order to meet what their needs are. Not to the point where you're, bargaining salary hikes or anything like that, but showing them the incentives of having this instructor certification and being part of a first aid program, and also showing the leaders in your organization, your leaders, or managers, if they don't have leadership potential, but they're managers and they still are assisting and part of the organization at the higher level, why it's so important to have a first aid program at your organization. And this isn't just for corrections or police stations, this is for everywhere. This is for any organization. Because what happens is, the more you invest in these mitigations, the more you invest in a robust first aid program in your organization, the less liability you're going to have. The more you reduce your risk. Now you've taken small problems and minimize them to almost no problems, versus not having the proper training, not giving people the proper information, not sharing MSDS information, material safety data sheet information, and then something occurring and nobody's trained or prepared, and it escalates until somebody dies or something, some egregious issue occurs, right? So I'm pushing this along to you guys because I wanted to bring up some things that came to mind. One for sure was, man, nurses are the backbone of the medical field. My man, most recently, the nurses that I was able to participate in instruction training with, I thought, wow, you know what? This is what makes hospitals, and I don't know about the world, but specifically in the U.S., if it weren't for nurses, a lot of people would be in a disadvantage or disadvantageous situations, because really, I don't think doctors are as prepared, or as they may have their training, but I don't believe that a doctor can run a hospital. I think it's the nurses that do the work. So, I mean, those are my thoughts. If you're a doctor out there, you can disagree. So, another thing that came to mind was family members of these people that are taking the training, right? I was like, and I brought this across in former organization I was with. I said, hey, you guys need to focus, take this information home, this first aid training. American Heart offers a CPR only training that's for free online, but practice and prepare your family members, because just because you have this information about first aid and CPR doesn't mean that you will be using it. It could be a situation where you go down and they have to use it on you. So those are other things that came to mind. And then the last of most important things was policy implementation. Um, Having the right policy that supports the processes of first aid and CPR. Um, what I learned, like I said, in the former organization I was at, was that they had a medical department, and the medical department was like, "Yeah, the other staff don't need to know about first aid because we're a medical department. We can do this, that, and the other." And my thoughts are, you know what? Having basic first aid and CPR training and training the whole workforce only what it does, it complements your medical department because now you have things that are being able to be resolved at lower levels and you have a better line of communication because everybody's speaking medical, everybody's speaking to the standards when it comes to American Heart, to first aid and CPR. And so what I'm saying is that your policy should help clear that up. You should write a policy or have a policy in place that kind of brings your workforce to where, yes, they're aware, they won't be sanctioned if they make mistakes. Mistakes happen as long as they, Good Samaritan Act. Here in the U.S., that's what we have, a Good Samaritan Act. They're doing it out of their own will to do the best they can to help preserve life. And hey, mistakes happen, and that they only required, or not required, but what's only expected of them is to be as humane as possible and provide the minimum amount of training that they have to use that resource till the professionals show up. And unfortunately, in 2025, there have been many incidents that the professionals don't show up for a good while, or the scene isn't safe. There's a shooting going on, or riot, or something, and so you got to have something in place. So if you're like in charge of a company or a business, um, and you have overlooked having a first aid training and first aid policy and SOP in place, I think you should really rethink this because the way I say it, not just for work, but also even for the family. This this is one of those things that first aid and CPR is one of those trainings doesn't hurt for everybody to have it at home, everybody to have it at work because it just the opportunity of saving life is much better. The results are better because of this. So um, I don't know. And back on the nurse thing, I really think after this last week, I always felt the same way, but just certified my thoughts that nurses are awesome. And talk with you guys soon. Share your thoughts. If you disagree with me when it comes to, everybody should be CPR and first aid certified anywhere in any organization, and we should always consider training our family members, let me know. But if you agree, let me know as well. Talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.
Bob, are you okay? Can you help get Bob up?
I'm trained in first aid and CPR. How can I help?